Hey team, quick little video here. Thank you so much for your involvement up to this point. It's been humongous and we anticipate so much more. Most of us, I think, have gotten through that first group and kind of sorted that out and wondered maybe like we did who would actually show up and who would communicate if they missed, and just heard so many good things. So thank you for your leadership on that. Want to encourage you these first few weeks to be reaching out individually to folks in the group. Hey, that was cool. Thanks for being a part. Thanks for sharing. It's great to get to know you and kind of continuing to cast that vision for what God's going to do, both in us individually, but also in our group as well. Now, as we lean into this next week, as you all know by now, we'll be talking about the question, how does God speak to us? Now, the biggest thing I could encourage you to do is spend time again walking through those 5 days individually, asking God what he has to share and challenge you. So you're prepped for your group, but also spend time in your facilitator guide. Specifically with the how to do the prayer experience. In this little window, the goal is to have some time set aside. You have to figure out how you're going to do this, to do your normal week where you debrief and you can walk through that stuff in the guide. But hey, here's the things, here's some questions I had. As you know, this is a week where we talk about the Holy Spirit and we talk about prayer, and then really to move into praying. And there's some good stuff in the facilitator guide. If you look, I think it's 36, 37, 38 page, and that'll give you some helpful tools to get your group going. But really want to encourage you. One of the things that will, I think, be most fun is inviting our groups into really listening to God. And so, of course, we're talking about how does God speak. So the question with that too is, how do we listen? And so I would encourage you, no matter how you set up your prayer experience time, set aside some time, either with the word or even just a blank sheet of paper with a couple of questions where you bring your groups to this intentional point where they lean in to God, to hear from him. And maybe it's about something specific that's going on in their life. Maybe it's just what it is that God would want to share with them, but that we practice listening and then sharing that as a group. Hey, here's what I think God's saying, or here's what God's speaking to me about this area. Could be a fantastic thing, as well as working through a prayer list. Let's bring our prayers before the Lord, and let's do those in an active and a fun way. Now, many of us are fasting. I attached on the weekly email the notes that are in the appendix. That's not for you. You have the appendix, obviously, of the facilitator guide. That's if you want to forward those on to your group. I did that to our group as we'll be fasting, and already got a couple comments back from some folks that was helpful and it was good to look at, because for many of us, fasting isn't a normal rhythm, and maybe even beyond that, we don't really have any clue what that might look like or why it's in the Bible and those kinds of things. And that appendix, as you guys know, does a great job of outlining some of those things. So talk about this idea of how God speaks to us, spend some time doing that, figure out how you're going to find time to pray together. And then as we think about praying, I want to encourage you, this is attached to your email as well, but we do have a group that's led by Jenny Milnick, as many of you know, Moms in Prayer, and they gather weekly. There's lots and lots of groups actually in our community that gather weekly and pray for our schools, for our kids, and through Moms in Prayer. And so I would encourage you, if you get a chance, please, to throw the net out, always trying to get the word out to moms. These are great little communities, and not just because they're good communities, but because of what they do as a way of changing the lives of the kids, changing our schools, changing our community through that. So if it might be something that some in your group would be open to, it's attached on the email. You could print those out, get Jenny's information through that, and let them connect with Jenny and continue what we hope is for many sort of renewed sense of this rhythm of prayer, and how do I walk with God in these ways, in really, really sweet the opportunity that prayer affords us. So look into that. So have fun. Have fun fasting if you guys are doing that. Have fun just being on your knees, expecting great things from our great God. I really believe that there's going to be a lot of sort of shaking the doors of heaven and seeing God work in this next season as we together in new ways go to the Lord in prayer. I want to throw out a couple things too down the road as we begin to think about in a couple weeks we'll be in Stronghold Week, and so begin to think about that and prep whoever you're leading or co-leading with on how you're going to separate and kind of again, maybe, introduce that concept to your group. And then the other one is, we'll begin to think, and that's a few weeks down the road, but about how our group is going to serve together. So maybe begin to ask your group, hey, is there something coming up that we could do together that would be in this category of serving together? Now, we'll have a number of those, not least Fall Family Fun Night as it's coming up during that window, but your serve doesn't have to be during that window. So as we lean into the fall, what is something our group can do together to serve God in our community? So work on that together. Again, thanks so much for all you're doing. Have an awesome week. Shoot me questions, text me, give me a call if you have anything. Love to support you. Love what you're doing. Thanks again.